Starscream, despite your treachery, I've allowed you to carry on this long because I took a certain delight in following your string of failures. But you finally become tiresome, predictable. You've hit rock bottom.
I felt like that was appropriate to a certain extent. I'm a little bit disappointed with this one, folks. First time we're talking live, probably going to separate into different things. But this is going to be the mid-season review. Sorry we weren't able to get this to you earlier. We had some catching up to do. Next week will be much easier since we had to do 3 episodes the first week and 2 episodes the second week. And not everybody's available. So first off, we have our good friend Valerian.
You want a good girl, but you need a bad pussy.
Die screaming.
And our other good friend.
I caught zero logic in all that. And that last bit, pure gibberish.
Finally! Finally, you got it.
Yes. Actually, did what? The use the pure detective clip.
You need the bad pussy.
No! Die screaming.
As an intro.
Die, 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 die. Die, 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 die. P.S. die.
Space junk.
Oh, hello, spacey chap.
Yeah, but basically, Count Valerian, don't you realize?
Yes, because suffering is good for the soul.
In that case, we need to make you suffer a little bit, Don. Your soul could use a little help. Could use a little help.
Sounds like a gas baby. Bring it on.
Yeah.
Did you also watch? Yes.
Isn't that what this is?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not. Was this show critically well received at all?
Is he being sarcastic, or was it?
I think.
I'm not sure.
Okay, so out of Google users, 71% like it. It's got a 7.5 out of 10 on IMDb, and it's got an 86 on Rotten Tomatoes.
Wow.
With an 80% average critical score. Though top critics gave it a 58%.
Okay, you've got dollar signs in there. That's interesting.
That's because it's part of the template.
So we might have trouble. We might have trouble remembering which things were in which episode.
Well, the nice thing is I have images that can kind of help us out.
And I guess if I accidentally think something's in one episode and was in the other, it won't matter too much.
Yeah. Yeah, people are watching this show en masse. It seems like it's receiving a lot of positive buzz. I believe on Amazon. Would you guys like me to share my screen to show? Oh,
sure.
That bit.
No! It's like...
Well, that's interesting. So I was getting the impression that it was getting mixed reviews, maybe positive.
It's got, so out of 14,000 reviews, it's got a 3.5 out of 5.
So that's equivalent to a 7 out of 10 or something.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much exactly accurate.
Begin your journey.
I can see something like that happening for this show.
The Westlands await.
Because the general public does not have, not particularly critical, exactly.
This show makes me sad.
Yeah, he was using sarcasm.
Yeah. I'm actually not in a dissimilar boat. I am a little bit disappointed with this show because it's very middle of the road. I think we'll kind of get into the initial thoughts here. I'll kind of start, I suppose. I'm a little bit disappointed, honestly. Not like just as a fan of the books, but also kind of just as somebody who watches a lot of TV. This is kind of not very good. It's not awful either. It's very mediocre and middle of the road, to be perfectly honest. Like, it suffers from focus and character problems, at least in terms of like setting them up as characters you understand. And they're trying to do an ensemble piece, but the problem is they're not giving enough meat to make it a good ensemble piece. That's kind of my initial thoughts. You guys can go up next.
Yeah, or let's see. I'd never read the books, so I don't have that to go by.
Well, that's the point of this. This is
That's-
the show uppers edition.
That's the point of this, yes. What was I going to say? And that's basically my impression too. That basically there's. I didn't find much that was horrible. There's some kind of bad stuff with the chap who kills his wife, and then afterwards you'd think he felt angst for it, but there doesn't seem to be. One of the things is that conflict will like arise, and then it'll just not exist. Not exist like an episode or two later. Just it'll be like, okay. So it's all kind of like, nah. I mean, it's not all bad. There is some cool stuff here and there. Things look cool.
Yeah, there are some. Yeah, there's nothing like to purists. I understand purists being extremely angry at this show because it is.
Yeah, I've
very,
noticed.
very different. It's very different, and we'll get into that when the books reader stream comes along. But like just as a show, it's mostly just kind of like it's got some good things. It's got some not really so good things, but it hasn't done anything that breaks its own plot. I think one thing that the show is lacking is it's kind of lacking a bit of dynamism in a way. That makes sense.
Yeah, and like
Yeah,
maybe
it probably does. But yeah, if it's my turn next,
Unless
so
Valerian, you had anything else to say?
just one thing. What was it good? Oh, something that might be a problem, which does have to do with book changes, is that women can be the Dragon Reborn, because that takes away from some of the conflict. And there we go on world building and the whole males can't channel magic without it tainting them and stuff. So there's not really that conflict if they can have a female dragon. But we'll explain that. You'll explain that later. But let the lusty chap take his turn.
Mm-hmm.
okay, so I had not only not read the books, this was not a series that I was particularly interested in. As in, I was in a bookstore the other day because I was going to exchange my second copy of American Gods that I got for my birthday, and several Wheel of Time books were there, but I grabbed Good Omens instead by Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett. So I only really watched this show because I was invited, essentially. And I had very cursory knowledge about the book's lore. So coming in, I've watched a couple of book readers be really, really pissed at this show. but I've tried to keep an open mind about it. There are things that I think work, and there are things that I definitely think do not work. But for the most part, it sort of just trudges on as this thing that exists. I think that's the best way to describe it in Shifrilla's terms. It's something that exists. And it's not really... There's very little in the show that is actually engaging. The only real thing that I found to be somewhat engaging was Logain in episode 4, which we'll probably get to.
Mm-hmm.
But aside from that, I couldn't really find anything to grab hold on that ran through the whole show, good or bad.
Yeah, there was one nice moment with Green and Rand. I guess it was a nice moment in episode 2. So there's things here and there, but yeah. But they don't stay consistent with the good things either.
Yeah, one of the things that I would say is a problem with this show is the pacing is kind of all over the place.
It's kind of slow, but at the same time there's a lot of stuff that's cut. So you're covering quite a bit of ground despite the slow pace.
And you're jumping from event to event, but the issue is it's like there's like a lot of transitional stuff that kind of being cut makes it so that the feeling is somewhat jumpy. It feels like we're jumping from thing to thing, but the problem is, I don't know. I think like getting into leave takings itself, kind of talking general stuff about that. I think that I don't think that it really does a good job of setting up the character's personality, other than Matt and Egwene are in love.
I thought Rand and Egwene were in love.
That's what I said, Rand and Egwene.
I thought you said Matt.
I mumble. It's a problem of mine. I'm trying to repent and failing often.
Well, yeah, because it might make things a bit confusing if you're saying Matt and it sounds like you're saying Rand, or vice versa.
Indeed. Yeah.
I'm horrible.
Nah, you're pedestrian.
What? Die screaming. You just die for eternity and have bad dialogue from season 8 drained into your mind for all eternity.
Oh, you mean like this?
You want a good girl, but you need a bad pussy.
Screaming, die screaming, die screaming. But, now here's a serious question. In terms of talking about the character arcs or lack thereof in general terms, should we do that now or at the end?
I think let's talk about character setup. I don't know if we can really talk about character arcs until the end of the show, at least the end of the season, to see where they're going. I think we can. We're going to be mostly talking about their setups and their progression or lack thereof. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, that's what I meant. I guess that's what I meant. Progression. So that progression bit should come like at the end and set up at the beginning. That makes sense.
Yeah. So we kind of like with the initial bit, we have Parody Barra and his wife Layla, who is an original character who exists pretty much just to die at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
which is just like not a good choice. It should have been someone else. It just kind of like I think people are just generally primed to dislike fridging. Like period.
Okay, fridging. When I guess that has to do with the husband or wife dies and they put them in the refrigerator.
So, just to explain it, fridging is short for girlfriend in the fridge, which is a whole trope. And it doesn't originate in, but it gets its name from a Green Lantern comic where I don't remember which Green Lantern it is.
Kyle Rayner.
Kyle Rayner, okay. He comes home and finds a note supposedly from his wife telling him to check in the fridge. And when he goes to check the fridge, his girlfriend Samantha is in there, or her corpse is in there because she's been killed by the villain. She has absolutely no characterization in the comic itself. The only reason she exists is so that her corpse can motivate Kyle to go into this revenge plot.
Yeah, it sounds about right. And Perrin is perhaps the least successful of the main characters.
I would to a certain extent agree with that. He hasn't really been given much material. Like, I think the actor Marcus Rutherford gives a very good performance with what he has, but he hasn't really been given much in the way of time to like kind of establish his personality, other than
he seems sort of vaguely depressed most of the time, or vaguely sad,
which is fairly accurate, but which is fairly which makes sense, but yeah, it's kind of doesn't give it a sense of his personality. Like, I don't see, like, I suppose, like, since we didn't even know he was a blacksmith until episode 3, or at least, like, they didn't mention it since, like, he was just he's working in a forge.
His wife was, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd think he'd be experiencing a lot more like intense grief.
Yeah.
You'd think it would be much more intense. I mean, the only moment where he has like 2 seconds of meaningful interaction with his wife, maybe 1 minute of meaningful interaction with Egwene, if that's the lady he was traveling with.
Yeah, that's accurate, yeah.
And maybe 20 seconds, possibly meaningful interaction with Matt, maybe.
Yeah, that's accurate. It's just kind of like, I keep internally comparing this to Legend of the Seeker, even though by most technical terms, Legend of the Seeker is not as good as this show, but it's Legend of the Seeker. I enjoy.
It's much more likable.
Yes,
it's a lot more likable. They do have more time to devote to the characters, but I'm thinking even in like just the course of 4 episodes, like I think part of it was kind of the fact that we had 2 episodes of character establishment with a singular plot, with Rance and Fane that really got us invested, and then a clear goal and motivation for the main characters that they're trying to accomplish, and that is just kill Dark and Rawl on Free Midlands.
Yeah, it is a little vague what's going on. And aren't the villains supposed to be chasing these people?
Yeah, and it seems like the only people that are really getting chased are Matt and Rand, technically, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Well, it's like they're the ones getting targeted post episode 2 when they split up.
Yeah. And we don't really see. I guess like part of it's like they're out in populated areas where there are dark friends that can say, "Hey, tip off the fade," but we'll get to that. So, it kind of the main central character of this is actually like we start off with Rosamund Pike playing Moraine and Daniel Henney as her bodyguard warder Land. And I think that Moraine is the best established character out of the bunch, aside from perhaps Rand. But it seems as though like the initial focus of the episode is Moraine and Egwene to a certain extent, because Moraine and Egwene received the most screen time out of all of them.
Also,
So,
they rhyme.
that too.
But yeah, from what I know about the books, it's mostly, if not exclusively, told from the POV of Rand. So
Yes.
Moraine is kept pretty mysterious initially,
Mhm.
which kind of doesn't work if you're going to make her the main character, or the central character, I should maybe say.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
giving this extra role in the plot means that the lack of initial characterization is sort of coming back to bite you.
Mhm. Yeah, there's also kind of a shift. Been like they've kind of revealed very quickly that this is. I think like it's an interesting kind of discussion to have, because what happens in the show, for those who haven't seen it, is the Moraine is searching for the Dragon Reborn, and that's pretty quickly set up. That's pretty quickly, or at least quickly established. Like they're just like, she's after the Dragon Reborn. This is the point of why she's going to the Two Rivers. And that's just what we see. This is go for it.
Pardon me. Don't you find it a charming coincidence, by the way, that all the candidates for the Dragon Reborn, they all live in the same little village?
Yeah.
Well, they established that there are several people that are considered candidates, but and the Aes Sedai have been going around killing some of them or capturing some of them.
Not quite. So to kind of like go over it, like they're not getting candidates for the Dragon Reborn. They're just finding men who can channel and permanently magically castrating them so that they don't go mad and kill people.
Or killing them.
Or if they're the red ones that kill them, flat out kill them.
They actually still don't kill them.
Didn't that guy get killed?
At the very beginning?
Yes.
No, he's just gentled. They don't need to kill him.
Oh, okay. Oh, then it's all right then.
Yeah. Yeah, magical castration is fine, but death, that's just unforgivable.
Well, compared to the confessors and hoo-ha.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
You keep coming back to the Seeker for some reason.
Well, I think that partially it's just, I think that's a good comparison point. Like a lot of people are kind of saying, like kind of comparing it to Game of Thrones a little bit. I don't think it's not. There are certain baseline structural things that you can compare with Game of Thrones to Wheel of Time, but mostly they're not comparable. They're very different. And that makes comparing them hard in anything other than like the base structural elements. And the reason why I say that is because it's just there's no centralized conflict in Game of Thrones season 1. It's very much more of an ensemble piece with kind of a focus going to Ned and Daenerys. Those are, I would say, are the two central characters and they're storylines are nowhere comparable to Wheel of Time, at least the Eye of the World, because this is very much a journey fantasy where they're taken out of their comfortable home and have to go out into the world to try and defeat a Dark Lord.
It's a lot closer to Lord of the Rings, it seems.
Yeah, that was actually very deliberate on Robert Jordan's part. Like, it was meant to be a love letter to Tolkien. In a lot of ways, where he kind of like takes a few elements from it, but turns it into something different. Like the Trollocs are basically orcs, but they're like slightly more creative than orcs.
Yeah, the wheel thing is maybe the big difference, because the wheel thing reminds me of Indian thought, like from Hinduism, Buddhism, stuff like that. The sorrowful wheel that goes on and on and on and on and on until someone saves you by stopping the wheel from going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, where we have an endless reincarnation that just lasts for generations and generations and generations.
Yeah.
One thing that I would have to say about this show is that I do like some of the elements of the world building that they do. Like, did you notice anything odd about the mountains in the first scene? It's been a while, but if you don't remember, that's fine.
Luster Chap, do you remember anything?
Sorry, I was doing something else. What was the question?
So in the first scene of the first episode, there's kind of oddly shaped square mountains all over the place. Like there's actually a because they kind of almost look like skyscrapers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
That goes back to kind of the idea that while this is a medieval like technology level, it's got its past is very futuristic.
Well, I remember you telling us that it was post-apocalyptic, but I don't know if they've said anything to that effect in the show itself.
They haven't said anything, definitely. They definitely haven't said anything for sure. Like most of, like they just say that like the world was broken a while back.
Whoops.
But I think that the show really doesn't, and they're kind of like other little things, like when you see like some let's see, so hopefully it won't be too blurry. So this is kind of like the mountains stuff that I'm talking about.
Okay. Those look a little weird.
Yeah.
Did
Yeah,
the
kinda
guys?
Yeah.
Did the skyscrapers get? I mean, can skyscrapers? I guess they couldn't get fossilized. Fossilized have to be alive to be fossilized. Well, you know what I mean. Biological to be fossilized.
But yeah, it's kind of like you see right here that it's kind of just like they're kind of using some interesting like structures for a lot of the mountain sides. It looks like they're overgrown ancient skyscrapers.
Very weird.
Mm-hmm. But kind of the first thing we see, I don't know if I don't think that this was a very good idea. Was kind of like the first scene we see is a bunch of red Aes Sedai finding a man who could channel and neutering him magically. And kind of then Moraine and Lan watching and Moraine saying, no, he's not. It's not him. So after that, we go to the Two Rivers, and a lot of people kind of make a big deal about the for positive or negative, that the fact that this is the most ethnically diverse backwater peninsula ever, geographically isolated backwater peninsula ever created.
Yeah, I think Shad was defending that. It's worth pointing out here that some people just object. Some people just want fantasy to be all white, basically. And no. And just no. I mean, that's
like, I think it's fine to have or to want diversity in terms of actors. The weird thing about doing it here is that, from what I know, the world of the Wheel of Time is pretty diverse in terms of culture and regions.
And skin color. Like, all over, like, there are people, like, cultures that have African black people. There are places that are Asian, that are very Asian inspired, and even, like, to their skin tone. There's a lot of Japanese influence, a lot of Japanese cultures. There are a lot of people from like Tyr and stuff are described as having dark skin, and they even have the most rare of commodities, gingers. An entire culture of gingers.
Of what?
Gingers.
Oh,
people
gingers.
with red hair.
I thought you said genders. I'm like, they even have genders. I'm like, is he being sarcastic here? They even have genders. Although, honestly, gender for male and female just is weird for me. It should be male and female
in general.
sexes. But anyway,
considering the diversity of the world and the fact that a point is made that the Two Rivers is really isolated, it seems strange to put it there in particular.
Where you have an interracial couple with Perrin and his wife. You also have like people from who is African black, like at least like 3 African black people interspersed with a few white people and several people who look like they're of Indian descent. So it's just kind of like, this has been relatively isolated for several thousand years, and even like after like a few hundred years, like why hasn't it ethnically homogenized as to the point where most people look relatively similar?
they wouldn't have to be all white. You could have them all. They could have most of them of Indian descent or whatever, you know.
Yeah,
like olive skin. I think like just like it's not a matter. It's mainly just that everybody looks different from each other, and it just kind of like, I personally don't find it distracting, but I know that actually like my parents, who are actually like fairly tolerant of these things, were kind of finding it a little distracting, because it's just like, this is a peninsula backed up by mountains and 2 rivers.
I confess I didn't really notice that one way or the other.
Yeah.
But yeah, outside of the occasional traveler or merchant, I don't get the impression that they get a lot of visitors.
Yeah, the only people who come down here are peddlers looking for wool and weed. But it is interesting that they kind of decided to say, there's 4 people here that have, well, before Maureen goes there, they say there's rumors of 4 Taviran, which they haven't explained well in the show, at all in the show yet. There's also kind of...
that seems like an explanation they'd give in like episode 2, but then they don't.
Yeah. And also just one thing about it is this is a backwater. How would you know about that? And also, how would you know about 4 like people that are the exact right age? Moraine it would make more sense if Moraine found out the relative ages while she was there.
Or it would actually really make more sense if they weren't all located in this tiny little village.
Yeah, well, kind of the thing is what they want. Yeah, it would. But that's kind of just the book itself. They're all there's at least like 3 in the book. It's 3 in the show. It's 5. It's 4/5.
It starts out being 4 and then it turns out to be 5. And who knows how many it'll be by the end of the season. I passed 20 Dragon Reborns just in the last 5 minutes.
That'd be impressive.
Yeah, they were kind of mediocre.
Very much like your trolling abilities.
You gotta be kidding me. My trolling is brilliant. Well, the weird thing is my trolling works sometimes. When it's obviously trolling, people will act like it's totally seriously. I'll see something utterly ridiculous and people will like, no, it's not. I'll say like, I don't know. We'll see
something about Rise of Skywalker being okay, not as bad as something about Rise of Skywalker being not as bad as Force Awakens or something like that.
That might be a reasonable point of view, though. That's not true.
Because the Force Awakens is better than the Rise of Skywalker.
But that's not real. When I see something way out there, I mean something like Rise of Skywalker is the greatest accomplishment of the human spirit. If I see something like that, someone will go, no, it's not.
Yeah. But
anyway.
So the thing that kind of gets that I think that one thing about this episode is there's kind of mostly meandering, I guess is kind of the feeling. There's not really a sense of dread. And I say that because at the very end, there's a really brutal action set piece that starts off as a massacre where the Trollocs are just like killing and eating people on screen, which is just like, you're definitely leaning into the gore aspects, at least.
Yeah, if you compare with Lord of the Rings, the sense of dread, of impending dread, in the books is established as early as the 2nd chapter already. In the book. In the book. There's not really that sense here. And in the Legend of the Seeker, too, you get that in the Legend of the Seeker, but not really here. Even though Dark and Roll looked like a fop.
A little bit, yeah.
BRB.
I do think the one thing about the show that it kind of like they do set up a few things, like you see the fade riding through the town and then vanishing, and you also get like the Trollocs showing up, but it's mostly just kind of like character interactions, but they're not engaging character interactions that develop them as people. It's mostly like the main thing that we get is Matt is a kleptomaniac who but still wants to help out his little sisters because he's the dad of the group, because his father is a drunk philanderer, and his mom is just a drunk.
Oh, yeah. I heard that was very upsetting to some people.
It upset me, actually. I actually legit walked off and screamed during the recording. You'll actually see me like visibly be annoyed, and then walk away, put my face into the nearest beanbag, scream, and walk back. I was quite pissed at that one. And it's kind of like, one thing that's kind of annoying about this is kind of there isn't really a way of figuring out for Moraine who's who, especially since they've changed it so that Egwene is the same age. Probably not. Maybe. I don't think so. Since when we come to the next episode, she doesn't have any of the dreams that the boys are having.
I'm sorry, what was that about screaming in beanbags?
I was very irritated at the changes to Matt's parents.
Oh, when they made the mother say, you be blank.
Oh no, it was kind of just the immediate look over there, that prick. I was just like, nope. Walked away, found a beanbag, put my face in it, screamed, and walked back.
But it's edgy.
I've seen edgier on American Horror Story. This is pedestrian.
Yeah, it's pretty pedestrian as far as edginess goes.
Yeah.
It's edgy.
Edgy is killing your mom and the real estate agent and putting sewing one of their heads to the other's body so that you can mime I'm a puppet show of the two-head girl that you like.
Oh, Brightness Decca's here. Speaking of edgy.
They were both first and second do quite unspeakable things to make Tarek watch Wheel of Time again. You can convince him. I have no doubt of it.
We believe in you, Becca.
Yeah, your feminine wiles are strong.
The feminine walls are strong in this one.
Yeah. But I think that the problem is we really only get a little bit of personality for each of the characters. We do get the random parent or good buddies with Matt because they're like, we know that you gambled all your money away to try and get lanterns for your sisters. So
Press X to doubt.
Press X to doubt.
What are we doubting again? That
she
can
get him to watch it. Well, I got him to watch the Transformers movies. Wheel of Time is nowhere near as bad as the Transformers movies.
Yeah, if you can get someone to watch that, you get them to watch anything.
See, that's kind of what I was talking about earlier. Is I don't remember if this was before the stream.
I think
it's Transformers. Transformers is an example of it's really bad, but it's so boring.
Yeah.
It's so it's impossible to actually get invested. This show is okay, but it's also impossible to get invested. At least for me.
Very difficult to get. Yeah, very difficult. Very difficult. Am I muttering too much?
No, you're fine. I can hear you fine.
Okay, good.
I've got your volume turned up to 200%, so you should be fine.
Imagine if I yell right now.
Do you really want to do that? I have punishment clips.
No, shut up with die screaming. Die
Like,
screaming.
Freddy,
No, you you already did the bad hoo-ha thing. You're not going to do that one else this live. You are not going to do that one. I will leave. You two will be stuck together for eternity.
bad hoo-ha. Bad hoo-ha. Bad hoo-ha.
Let's keep going.
Yes.
Yeah. But I think like just we do have some interesting. I think part of it's just like they're making the mystery less. Who is the Dragon Reborn? More of what does Moraine want from them, versus other than Trollocs attacked their village. In the, I won't do many comparisons to the books, but in the book, the Trollocs specifically target only a few locations, which is they target the Cawthon's house, the forge, the Abara farm, and the Althor farm. And like they do attack the rest of the town, but those locations are specifically targeted. For what reason they don't fully know. Moraine kind of knows, but that's how she knows that the boys.
Like, she suspects, and the Trollocs somewhat know that these people have the ability to channel, and therefore they're being targeted. Is the impression I'm getting
Or
here.
at the very least, yeah, or they're special.
Whereas in the show, we get one Trolloc for the Althor farm.
Yeah, it's actually like a group of Trollocs in the book. Like, and we actually don't. One of the things that we see in the show is Moraine fighting off the Trollocs in Emmons Field, which doesn't. They kind of in the book they actually come out of the inn yelling Trollocs, and initially they think they've gone meh, that they're crazy, but then like they see the Trollocs come into the town, and it kind of takes a while for for Moraine and Lan to fight the Trollocs. Like a lot of people die. And instead, it's actually Rand. Most of what that's showing is actually Rand dragging his father on a makeshift sled all the way down the quarry road. Very much worried about if his dad's gonna live. So I think they definitely wanted to start off with a bang, but it kind of comes a little bit, and I don't know how you could really do this cinematically and kind of keep the audience invested, but I think it would have been some good character development for Rand, at least like character painting for Rand. The magic is pretty cool, but I think that like there's also bits of scenes that I'll talk about in the book readers thing, and talk about why those changes affect things. They might bring it back in, since we have seen trailer footage of certain things that are pertinent to that, but we'll get into that another time.
What's that? Sorry.
There is that would require details that would require me to spoil something that might be coming up later in the show. So I won't talk about it now, because I think that they'll be bringing it in later based on the trailers. What I will say is that it has something to do with the winter scene of a dude doing a fly around with leaping around a guy with a cape.
Sorry.
Yeah. So, but once Rand arrives, Oh, there's another point. Perrin kills during the fight. Perrin goes into a little bit of a berserker rage and accidentally kills his wife on the backswing. So,
Yep.
which is kind of like, I think Shad actually put it as, you can't really totally capitalize on that. Because
they barely had any interaction to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had a nice little bit of interaction for a couple of seconds.
Yeah, but when she dies, it's kind of like she only has like two spoken. She only has one line, I think, maybe two. So it's just
I think it's two.
Yeah. And it does seem like it affects him, but they didn't give us enough time to invest in her or give us a sense of her personality. It just seems as though like they have negative chemistry, honestly. Whether that's deliberate or not, I'm not sure. But it just seems as though like they're not really a loving couple as much as just kind of a marriage of convenience, it seems like. So
yeah, I did not get a sense of why they were married or why they had any sort of relationship.
Yeah.
Well, it was only for 2 seconds. It looked like nice enough for those 2 seconds.
Yeah, I suppose it just kind of like it just seems like they're like when they're interacting, they kind of seem like relatively cold and stilted toward each other. Like it's kind of awkward.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness! Wow. So boring. He starts reading up on Doctor Who.
Yeah, there are more boring things than that, surely.
Well, I mean, like Doctor Who, like Doctor Who is insane. Like, it is one of the most insane, weird TV shows ever made.
Well, yeah, of course it is.
Because it's
got time travel in like every episode. What do you expect?
Yeah. Isn't that the point of it? They time travel?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
But it's just like the continuity is all over the place. And like it's
especially
just, like,
recently.
Recently. And they have weird aliens that all over the place. Like they have trash can alien robot things. They have lizard people. They have aliens that send you into the past so that you'll die at the moment you saw them. Weird stuff like that.
They have gods of destruction. They have like immortal families that get trapped in conceptual existence.
Yeah. I haven't watched it in decades, so but I do remember it being weird.
Yeah, I watched a few episodes and I'm just like, this is not the show for me. Sorry. I'm not doing this.
It had cool theme music back in the day.
It did, yeah. So, and then they kind of say, then Moraine drops the bomb on them. One of you is the Dragon Reborn, the most powerful channeler. And if one of you is a dude, light help us. She doesn't say that, but it's just like that's what she should say because
danger.
Yeah. So since the last dragon broke the world, and there is actually a little. So you know the histories and lore of Westeros.
Yeah, you told me about them having clips like that.
Yeah. The way that you find those, you actually look at the bonus content when you pause the episode. And I just recently uploaded the first 3 and the 4th one. One of them is about the breaking the world, specifically about how men sealed away the Dark One, and the Dark One counter-attacked by tainting the male half of the true source. And because of that, the dragon killed the entirety of his family because he was insane. And then when he died, he fled and basically committed suicide by creating a giant mountain over his location. Did a Doctor Who experience? Yeah, I imagine it was. But one thing that's interesting, they've kind of gotten rid of the idea of a binary soul reincarnation, which conceptually I could be okay with. The problem is the tension in and conflict is that the Dragon Reborn is a dude, and therefore that's the tension, because men go nuts. If it's a woman, then nothing's going to happen. She's just going to be regular powerful channeler.
So if Gwen or Nynaeve or whatever whatever her name is, if it's them, then hey. If it's them, then hey. It's hey, la la la.
Yeah.
Let's party.
Yeah. Let's boogie. But kind of one thing, we kind of get a fake out of Nynaeve getting killed, and then she's dragged away by Trollocs, which kind of implies that she's being chased after by the enemy as well, because she ends up killing the Trolloc, as we see in a flashback in episode 3. But it kind of has bearing on episode 2 because she's right back. She's back at the end of episode 2, which we'll get to in a second. So it's kind of just pointless fake out. And kind of the main person who brings up Perrin's wife is actually Egwene throughout this first episode. So at the second episode.
Which is strange.
Oh.
I mean, like, Matt brings her up in one conversation.
Mm-hmm. To say, here's this pathetical knife when you should have an axe to actually defend yourself.
Oh, there was one mild bit of conflict in, I think, episode 1 between Nynaeve and it was. Oh, shut up! No, I don't want to buy your. Pardon me. No, Malachor, I don't want to buy your stupid product.
Well, I'm glad I've created a meme. I'll have to keep reading that book, reading that for next writer's showcase. So,
anyway, before Malachor rudely interrupted me, I was saying that it seemed that there was a conflict between Nynaeve and Moiraine, having to do with Nynaeve resents that she wasn't allowed to join the Aes Sedai because she's too low class. But
her predecessor was not allowed for some reason.
Oh, then why does Nynaeve getting worked up about it?
Good question.
It doesn't seem
go for it. Sorry.
It doesn't seem that particular conflict lasts past the first episode.
Nope. It's also kind of like it just means that she just. So this is technically book canon, but I'm gonna mention. But I think like it's somewhat pertinent. Aes Sedai recruit anybody. They don't care about what class you're from. Like farmers' daughters bump shoulder. It's like the Jedi Academy. Aside from the fact there's only one sex / gender that's there, and there's so much teenage experimentation going on. It's not even funny.
No comment.
But yeah, it's like
there's a whole oh, go for it.
It's like if you have the power to channel, or if you have the Force in Star Wars, like you are so important and so powerful that your gender really shouldn't matter, or class, or
gender, class, or race.
Heritage, or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And
I mean, obviously, in Wheel of Time, they have the gender restriction because of his backstory, history stuff.
Mm-hmm. Which totally makes sense. Hence that you would not want insane weapons of mass destruction near you.
So basically, a man who channels is a walking, talking nuke.
Pretty much, yeah. Like there's
actually the time bombs.
There's a story in the book where in book 2, but it's not plot relevant, that a man who could channel like woke up and the only thing that was that it was left of the town, including the house he was in, was the bed he was sleeping on.
Yikes.
Damn.
Yeah. So, and we do have some idea of what a man can channel can do because we see Logain later on, and we'll get to him. But I think, what was I saying about? I think part of it's like it doesn't make sense because specifically like Aes Sedai have their culture is like farmers' daughters rub shoulders with like literal princesses or the sisters of kings. It's an innkeeper's daughter rooms with a princess, and like there's a pair of green sisters that you meet later on. One's a farm woman. The other one is the sister to the king of Arafel, borderland country. So it could be unreliable narrator. Like it said that like she could listen to the wind. It could also be like she was not that she was not able to channel, or that she was so weak that it didn't happen. So the problem that comes in when it becomes clear to Nynaeve, when eventually Nynaeve goes to the White Tower, unless they majorly change that the White Tower is classist, that conflict with the Aes Sedai is going to go away pretty quickly.
Not to mention, even in the show, I don't recall that conflict ever being alluded to again in any of the succeeding episodes.
Not even remotely.
Yeah. So it's there for that one scene. I mean, it's a good scene, I guess, in itself. I guess.
Yeah. It's good, like, acting from Zoe Robbins. It's just that, like, it's kind of pointless.
Yeah.
And then we get into the Shadows Waiting, which the main thing of this is mostly travel with a few special things. such as the weird dream that Rand has of the bats.
Oh, that weird thing.
That
Mhm.
was very weird.
Yes.
So what do you guys think that is? Like, as just people who haven't seen it, like, since I'll describe it for those who haven't seen it, where Rand is like wakes up supposedly in the middle of the night, and he is choking, and he pulls out a bat.
A really
its neck
big
broke.
bat.
Yeah. And then he sees a man with fiery eyes and black clothing. So, what are your guys' thoughts on that? Like, since I'm fine with them kind of like creating kind of a boogeyman thing, but I would kind of prefer it if there was kind of some measure of engagement between characters. To better establish the conflict, I suppose.
Well, from my very limited knowledge of the books, I would theorize that this is either a manifestation of the Dark One, but it's like I would have preferred. I kind of like the look of it, but I would have preferred if he had talked. Or you don't even need a dialogue; you just need him to say something to establish what this character is and what it wants. Because as is, it's kind of just there for a jump scare in a dream.
Kind of, yeah.
So, what did I get out of it? Oh,
Yeah.
something evil. This is kind of weird, but I think it's something evil. That was that was my superficial. That's my superficial assessment. So, mine is not quite so deep.
Perfectly understandable. But after that, it turns out there's a bunch of broken neck bats all around the campsite. Which is really creepy, but it seems as though Egwene didn't have the dream, which kind of, I would say, eliminates her as the Dragon Reborn. Because it seems like the three boys have it. It could, since, and later on when Perrin has a dream in episode 3, she doesn't have that dream, as far as I know. As far as we see, at least. So it seems like this manifestation of the Dark One is kind of focusing in on these three boys. But it kind of is like, okay, so it's basically just the Fort Taviran thing, just a pretext to get Egwene out.
Is there a similar scene in the book?
Yes, there is a similar scene in. So one thing that they actually that they did in the show was they actually, this isn't really a spoiler, they had to remove an entire town that you get to see, that where they stop and rest for a few days, and that's where they actually meet the White Cloaks that you meet in this episode. It's very, very, the context is very, very different. They don't meet them on the road. They have a couple of run-ins with them in the town and at Berlon.
Okay.
And when they're there, they have Rand, Matt, and Perrin all three have a dream about a man with fire eyes. But in the book, he talks with Rand and starts trying to mess with his head and intimidate him.
That would be scary.
And when Rand wakes up, all the rats in the inn, they find a ton of rats with broken backs in the inn.
Okay, not bats then.
Yeah, they shifted it from rats to bats. That's pretty superficial change. I'm fine with it. One change that I am okay that is very interesting is the white cloaks in this are actually psychotic, or at least a few of them are psychotic.
Yeah.
Like
seems like they're trying to make them a pretty significant threat.
Mm-hmm.
Which, from what I've heard, they are not in the books.
Yeah, they're kind of Knights Templar edition of Team Rocket. If you've ever heard it, if for anybody who's ever seen Pokemon,
Team Rocket is the recurring villain team who try to capture other people's Pokemon, and they have it's like a gag. They do like paper thin disguises, and every time they're in an episode, they just end up being horrendously defeated and tossed off into the distance.
Yeah, Team Rocket's blasting off again is their catchphrase whenever they're getting like shot skyward into a fall that would kill most people, but they're anime characters, and so they have like bodies made out of elastic.
Yeah, we need to have some kind of bad guys, so I guess it's useful to have the. I mean, we have the dark one, but we have, apart from that weird dream, we've not seen much of him.
Yeah. I think one problem is that the White Cloaks have shown up and then they kind of haven't shown up since episode 2. So they're not really much of a constant presence enough to be like be main villains. They're being chased by Trollocs throughout episodes 1 and 2. And I kind of question, where are the Trollocs at the end of episode 2? Because they're waiting outside the city. But we'll get to that in a minute.
I have to go back one second.
The Fade abruptly attacks Rand and Matt and Tom at the end of episode 4, but the Trollocs seem to disappear entirely.
Which is a thing in the books, but the main thing is that they don't have, that we kind of transition from monsters chasing them to more human dark friends chasing them, which we do see in the show if massively condensed.
Okay, this reminds me of there was that one scene with the Fade and the Trollocs, and they get on the ferry, which and that reminded me that the ferryman was like pretty much the most sympathetic character so far.
Yeah,
he kind of was.
Yeah, he's like, my son is there, and then he commits Aes Sedai assisted suicide.
Yeah, I know that Shad wasn't very fond of that.
Yeah, I think that partially, like, he should see, there's a whirlpool, dude. You shouldn't go out into that. And if you go back, it doesn't matter. Your son's dead. It doesn't matter.
But he gets to join him in
unless he sees like the giant army carrying torches and just decides to book it, which probably would happen.
Yeah, probably. But it seems like he just had kind of plot-induced stupidity to jump in the river, and that has a giant whirlpool that is sucking his ferry down. He has no way of getting back to the shore and destroy.
Okay.
I think it would have been better if they'd not ripped up the Buckleberry Ferry from Lord of the Rings, and they just like they know that the Trollocs are in pursuit, but they don't see them. So they
Ye-
give the ferryman some reason to go back.
Yeah. So this is a change, but basically what happens is the ferryman. It's actually they don't know that he doesn't know that it's an Aes Sedai on there at all. Even at and instead of being chased by Trollocs, they're being chased by a flying vampire thing called a Dragcar. And when the ferry is when Moraine destroys the ferry, there's no Trollocs chasing them. There's no army of Trollocs on the other side. And she just destroys the ferry. The ferryman is still alive. At the end of that encounter.
Okay, so 2 questions. A whirlpool in a river. I assume that's magically induced
Yes.
because you couldn't. I don't think. I don't know much about whirlpools, but I don't think you could get one in a river. Maybe you could. Maybe
You could, but not that big.
And how did they get to the other side? If this whirlpool is going on, how did the good guys make it?
Oh, basically, like Moraine just makes it once they're across.
Okay, I think I get it now.
Yeah, she destroys the ferry so that they can't be followed.
Oh, pardon me.
So here. Did a mouse
What
come out
happened
and
there?
jump up your
I
leg
just
or
bit
something?
myself. I bit myself. I hate it when that happens.
Yeah. So I actually just looked this
Well,
up.
actually,
So
I mean, it's
whirlpools
not
are
that-
actually
it's not
formed
actually that-
when.
It's not actually that funny when it happens to you.
No, it's not. So
But carry on.
whirlpools form when opposing currents meet, causing the water to rotate, kind of like stirring liquid in a glass. And usually that's when heavy winds happen.
Okay.
So, but basically, like just like in the show, Moraine destroys the ferry, but the ferryman lives. And I think that the point of that is to make Moraine a little bit more ambiguous and create some more distrust. But it's mainly because the ferryman is stupid. And decides and it's kind of just like, I see what you're going there, but nobody's that dumb, even if they're desperate. Contrary to popular belief, people have a certain, self-preservation instinct. And if he's seeing the whirlpool, you should probably not go in there because he's probably going to die and his son is not going to have a way over there anyway, and his son's going to lose his father. So it's kind of dumb.
Yeah.
Admittedly,
He's just being dumb.
Yeah.
At least it's stupid in a sympathetic way, though.
Yeah.
Well, Brightness Becca said, "He's my favorite character now," or something to that effect.
Huh.
That's my favorite.
Interesting.
This guy's my favorite character now.
Interesting. I'm actually not seeing the chat. I'm actually not seeing the chat right now.
Oh, not now. At the time. Yeah.
No, I'm literally like the last chat I saw is from 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, me too. I wasn't talking about the chat. I was talking about while we were watching.
Oh, true. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. It does create an interesting conflict, I suppose. But the premise is built on a really shaky foundation, which is annoying.
Yeah. So
But
episode
the conflict is kind of resolved quickly. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, most conflicts, it seems, either get resolved quickly or just quickly, if you know what I mean. Yeah, that was
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel from like a pacing perspective. Like, I knew that there were only supposed to be 8 episodes, but I completely forgot until I found out that this was supposed to be the mid-season stream. Because it really feels like we're still... Like, this feels like it should have been covered in 2 episodes. Like, it doesn't seem like a lot has happened.
Yeah.
It does not feel like mid-season at all.
Yeah. Part of it's like it's only been out. We've gotten 4 episodes in the course of 2 weeks. But yeah, there's kind of an element of they're both stretching out and speeding through material, which is kind of a weird dichotomy.
Yeah, for episode 2, I do remember two decent bits. Well, I was just watching last night, so that's partly why I remember. There was that scene with Egwene, and Rand had a nice scene, and the city is cool. The dead city.
Yeah, Shadar Logoth or Shadar Logoth, whichever
Shadar
one
Logoth,
you choose.
yeah.
I don't really care.
I like Shadar Logoth.
Basically, what? Yeah, they do run into some white cloaks, and Mr. Eamon Valda is kind of handsy with Moraine. I kind of asked the question of how is he going to tell that she's an Aes Sedai by putting his hands all over her? Or
I guess he's searching her or something.
Kind of creepy, kind of creepo.
Perhaps. Yeah.
And I mean,
he is, but go for it.
I mean, she is imposing, but I wouldn't call her hot exactly.
She's statuesque.
Yes, she's impressive. I guess they used to say handsome of a woman like that.
Yeah, which is the description of Septa Lemore, who's apparently the hottest Septa on the planet or something.
Apparently. No comment.
Apparently, is fine about Tyrion making masturbation jokes about her.
Really no comment.
Yeah. They ruined Tyrion. We won't talk about that.
Okay. What?
But they ruined Tyrion, but we won't talk about that today.
Kill it! Pardon me, but yes.
Yeah, season 2 Tyrion was... Oh, hey, you actually used...
Yeah. Go for it. Sorry, I've cut you off.
Oh yeah, season 2 Tyrion was peak Tyrion, and we shall never see his like again.
Nope.
Until they remake it in 30 or 40 years.
Good luck with that.
Let's hope we'll be there for it.
Yeah. But one of the things that happened is Moraine is sick because she got a Morgul blade. I mean, Trolloc dagger in her shoulder.
That's a big dagger, too.
Yeah. But I just kind of noticed that similarity that she gets a Morgul that she gets a poison knife in her shoulder and she looks very weak and has to be carried around. So that is not in the book. So that's a ripoff that's on the show, not the books. It's a more direct ripoff than most of the other stuff in the Wheel of Time. And because of the danger from the Trollocs, they go to the city of Shadar Logoth. And as soon as they get close, the Trollocs just stop and don't go near them. Once they get into the city,
Ominous.
it only has one exit. Go for it.
Ominous.
Yeah. And once they're in, Lan tells them the story that apparently this place used to be the greatest city in the world. But then when people tried to come find it after they walled themselves up and became hyper-isolationists, they found there was nothing in there. Not even birds or bees or whatever. I guess all that they had, I guess they all went mad and turned into black goo after seeing Daddy, would you like some sausage over and over again?
Yo! Kill it! Die screaming! Die! Die to look at some other point. Die! No, you don't.
Why? What? Yeah. Well, all I can say is this.
Bring it on.
No, because what I bring on was I would leave and the two of you be stuck here by yourselves.
You're too sensitive. It's seen as not so bad.
I'll decide that, young man.
Daddy, would you like some sausage?
Yeah.
Daddy,
Die!
would you like some sausages?
Die! Die! No, he just die. Die screaming. Don't encourage him.
Daddy, would you like some sausage? Daddy, would you like some sausages?
Okay, let's move on. Let's move on.
Move on, I'll kill you both. You'll make...
For the sake of Valerian's sanity, let's move on.
For the sake of your eternal, immortal souls, which will be damned for eternity in the pits of eternal torment. So to speak.
A bit too late for that one.
Oh no. Oh no.
But once they get into the city, after Matt has been told this is dangerous, don't touch anything, he's a kleptomaniac. He's established as a kleptomaniac, and he finds a dagger and just takes it after hearing
Like
weird
an
voices.
Like right
Yeah.
afterwards, wasn't it? Wasn't it right afterwards? They say, "Oh, don't touch it," and like, "Hey, la, 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 la," he goes, "You can't tell me what to do." Takes the thing out of the box. La, 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 la. Oh, horrible, bad things are happening. Who'd have thunk?
Yeah.
Who'd have thunk?
Bit of an idiot. What?
So basically, Matt is a boo from Aladdin. Oh yeah, I forgot Valerian hasn't seen Aladdin.
Well,
The
neither have
Disney
I,
movie.
and even I can understand what you're talking about.
I
You haven't seen
mean,
Aladdin?
yeah,
I have not seen Aladdin, no.
I've not seen. Yeah, I know who the genie is, and I know who the princess is, and I know who Aladdin is because, of course, I know who Aladdin is. But I don't know who Abu is. But maybe we'll watch that when we're
Abu.
watching the Disney Renaissance. We can watch that too.
Yep, we're first going to watch the original, and then we will watch the remake.
It should be the other way around. Did you just go bleh?
Get hype! Yeah, you did. The Disney remakes are just like soulless pieces of garbage.
My impression was that they were
Yeah.
based on.
They're way worse than
The ones
this.
Oh, go for it. Sorry, Valerian, you got cut off.
Based on what I've
Your impression
seen,
was what
mostly from Lindsay Ellis, but most of what I've heard, and they sound like they were absolute raw.
They are worse than this show.
Well,
Significantly.
this show's not actually that bad, yeah, for the most part.
Like,
so yeah,
It's not one of those things that's objectively not bad, but it's so boring and uninteresting.
mostly yeah.
Story
there's a
that's going to be
mosquito house.
forgotten in 5 years.
What is the
Wheel of Time show.
It's a big time show, yeah. You guys gonna forget it in 5 years.
Heck, I have trouble remembering things now.
Yeah.
Sorry.
They could, I guess. It does seem like they're kind of improving as they go along, but it seems as though, but it kind of seems like there's kind of a rough. They have a bit of a rough start. They do have a pretty creative scene where they have this symbiote slime from Spider-Man 3 climbing all over the city, trying to grasp onto the to turn them to dust. And most of the latter half of the latter end of the episode, I think like the last 10 minutes, is spent with them trying to get away from the slime in order to get to outside the city before they get eaten.
Yeah, that was that weird black stuff.
Which is why I call it the symbiote slime from Spider-Man 3.
Yeah, it looked creepy. It looked a lot creepier than a lot of other creepy. With things that are meant to be scary, often less is more.
Yeah.
Mm. So this is kind of like what I'm talking about. The
Yeah, I remember it being a bit vaguer in the Wheel of Time show.
By the way, am I the only one who finds it interesting how the symbiote from Spider-Man 3 in 2007 still looks better than the Venom we have now? In the Venom movies with Tom Hardy.
What do you think, Brett Butler?
I actually haven't seen it, but yeah, I think the Venom in Spider-Man 3 looks better. It's a little bit too shiny in Venom.
Like, it's so obviously CGI. Like, even if it isn't, it really looks like CGI. Like, it's so smooth and it's so glossy.
And also, like, it's like there's like moments when like it peels away from his face, and it's just like, ugh, he is clearly composited onto. Is clearly like very badly composited. But we'll save Spider-Man for another discussion.
Yep. The other comparison that comes to mind, sort of, is the weird black thing in Skin of Evil in the original in the Star Trek Next Generation. Except that doesn't chase people, really.
I do believe that is it for episode 2, other than the end where Nynaeve shows up.
There is that scene with Egwene and Rand. So there's that scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's kind of throughout this episode, there's kind of relationship fracturing, partially instituted by the fact that Egwene is taught a little bit by Moraine about how to use the one power, and that she'll be an Aes Sedai. So with that one, we see a little bit of the relationship fracturing. There's kind of some like a little bit of like teen drama where there's people like kind of like conflict between them but it's kind of, I suppose.
Kind of which, I suppose?
I think you got cut off there, Done.
You got
That's
cut
kind of
off
the
a
best
bit.
thing I can come up with that one.
Kind of what
I do
though?
like-
Wait, I'm sorry. We didn't catch all you said in your last sentence. You were talking about Egwene and Rand, and you got like cut off, and one of your words got cut off. Kind of something, I suppose. You were saying
Something about teen drama.
Yes. Uh-oh, I have a bad feeling about this.
Oh boy.
Brat Lord.
Okay, so either my internet is having problems or his is.
Well,
Can you hear me now?
Now we're back on.
Okay, good. But it's based in kind of shallow writing, I suppose you could say.
okay, the
Yeah.
teen drama thing. What were you saying about that?
Well, it's kind of just like Rand gets into a fight with Moraine because he's like clearly freaked out about this, and Egwene takes his side. Takes
her
Moraine's
side.
side. Yeah, takes Moraine's side. Yay, Dollface! Always a pleasure.
Dollface.
Hello, Doll
And-
Chop.
Mm-hmm. And that kind of creates some friction. But at least Rand says, "I don't hate you. You've just made your choice."
Yeah,
Which is-
that was nice. I
Yeah.
could never
Yeah,
hate
he's not. It's not like a full-on teen drama where he just turns into an asshole for no reason.
Mm-hmm. And it's not like people have kind of said that this is like a CW show. I would disagree. The CW is the worst content I've ever seen.
The CW, like shit like The Flash, it's like a 1 out of 10. Like this is maybe like a 5. Like a very boring and unengaging type of 5, but still a 5, or maybe more.
Yeah, maybe 6 out of 10.
Oh, you
There are
have
bits
no
and bobs
idea.
that hit.
Oh, you're talking about Wheel of Time. Yeah, I'd say Wheel of Time is about a 6 or 7 out of 10.
Yeah, 6 or 7. 6 or 7.
CW is
No,
a 2.
yeah.
Well, which CW shows are we talking about specifically?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, like if I were to give like this a grade, it would be somewhere around a B minus, C plus ish. Where they haven't done anything like screamingly bad other than the adaptation differences. The adaptation differences are pretty bad. It is getting, at this point in time, it is getting very close to an in-name only adaptation.
Oof.
Bother. So that
Yeah.
means those of us who have not read the books won't learn very much about the books from this. We'll learn something, but not an awful lot.
No. So then we get into episode 3, A Place of Safety, where we start off with Nynaeve playing, I think it's, what is it? Metal Gear Soliding a Trolloc with its own knife. which I think
Yeah, I
that scene was
guess.
decent. This scene was decent, but it's kind of just like the Trolloc gets distracted by his wounded comrade and starts eating it, and Nynaeve manages to get away, then gets the women's circle pool. When the Trolloc gets in the pool, she grabs this knife and shanks him.
By the way, that's close to 2 rivers, right? So for some reason she followed them all the way to Shadar Logoth.
Yep.
Who did?
Nynaeve.
Oh, Nynaeve. Yep, she's part of the company now.
Yeah. At least in terms of the like she's travels with Moraine and Lan. She tries to kill Lan, but Lan easily beats her and knocks her out because Lan is a Chad.
Oh, now I remember that.
Also has superpowers.
I forgot all about that scene. Tell the truth, I don't remember much of episode 3.
Yeah, episode 3.
By the way, I only realized this now. Nynaeve would have had to go through the 2 rivers and talk to a bunch of people to find out what happened. Why didn't we see that? Seems like an interesting thing to show.
Yeah, I guess they just wanted the surprise of having her come back at the end of episode 2 as a cliffhanger. But the thing is,
you could have shown it after the fact.
I think that probably would have been good. Yeah.
So how are things actually going in the 2 rivers now?
Yeah.
Sounds like the kind of thing that could use some dialogue, as Mueller pointed out in a different context.
Yeah. It's not quite.
Most of all, these performances, these faces.
No!
Not quite this. It's not quite this to that point.
Well, the thing is, the characters are actually talking to each other, which helps.
Yeah, there is actual dialogue in the show, to be fair.
Yeah, that's why I say it's not these performances, these faces. Though weirdly enough, Dave Hill is on the, so far at least, the most entertaining episode of the season.
Wouldn't it be a riot if the good bits came from him?
That would be.
I mean, presumably he's not as bad as David Benioff, but...
Well, it's just he's not a Well, kind of the thing is he's not a screenwriter. He has no formal screenwriting training nor screenwriting degree, as far as we know. Probably he maybe has, at least like maybe he's improved, since I know for sure like Cogman scripts look like Benioff scripts.
Well, that's because he takes all of his cues from Benioff.
Yeah.
Is episode 3 the one with the amusing dialogue, or is that episode 4?
Episode 3 is the one where Matt and Rand start working at an inn, and they meet Mr. Musician.
Okay, so this is the one with the amusing dialogue.
Yeah, like where I think like at one point like they have like the party splits up, and Matt and Rand go off and spend most of the episode in a town, whereas Perrin and Egwene are getting quote unquote chased by wolves.
And they have a sort of an actual character interaction too, sort of.
Yeah, and it is kind of like I was just like watching like Perrin interact with Egwene, and like he makes her look tiny, which I think is a good establishment of like Perrin, because Perrin's a big guy and Egwene is tiny. And
I guess either he's in love with her or something.
I doubt it.
Yeah.
I think he's still not over his wife.
Well, I would hope he wasn't over his wife yet.
Yeah, it's going to be kind of interesting to see how this affects changes down the road when he does eventually get into a relationship, because that happens. At least, like, I don't think it's a spoiler that most of the guys, like, it's a 14-book series. If none of the guys got into romantic relationships, it would kind of feel weird.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fantasy series featuring a trio of boys. It's 14 books long. There's probably going to be a relationship or two down the line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when we get, and eventually, like, Perrin and Egwene's story stops, pretty much ends after they've been running and they finally interact. Perrin does have a nightmare about a wolf eating his wife's dead body, though she looks at him and says, "I know," and he wakes up after Baalzamon does a sinister scream in his face. But then they run into a group of people called the Tinkers, which are basically pacifist gypsy types, where they just travel around.
This was one of the characters I liked.
Yeah.
The lady, I like the lady.
Yeah, Isla is. I do like Isla, and Maria Kennedy Doyle is a really good actress, and it's I'm a little bit sad that she's there for a bit part, but and not as another character who I really like, named Varen Mathwin, but I'm fine with her being Isla because she gives a really good performance in episode 2.
Yeah.
Before, I mean.
Okay, 1 second. Chat. Space junk. Oh no. No, the one under it. That one. Oh no.
Entity not defined.
Oh no.
Yeah. Yeah, Layla Ibarra is not. She's a plot device, not really a character. And it's kind of just lazy.
It is really lazy, yeah.
And then we have we have Matt and Rand's story where they go to this inn and they meet Tom Marilyn, who's this kind of, it seems like he's an aging rock star type.
That was pretty much the impression I got when he was singing at the end, yes. That was pretty much the impression. Like, this is a post-apocalyptic world, so maybe some remembrance of rock music survived over the thousands of years since the breaking of the world.
Possibly.
Which is very consoling because at least it wasn't rap.
Yeah. But with Tom, he kind of is a little bit inconsistent. Like when when a pickpocket picks Matt's pocket and then Matt picks the pocket, Tom picks the pocket right back. He gives the purse back later, but he doesn't give it to Matt and Rand immediately, which is kind of odd.
I got the impression that he was pretending to steal it.
Mm-hmm.
Or he was pretending that he stole it, but was intending to keep it.
Mm. Yeah. Well, kind of like at the end, like he says, like, I think I have something of yours after him and Matt finish burying the Aiel. But then Matt steals, like, apparently has palmed it or something.
This scene has another one of my favorite female characters. I think I have two female favorite favorite female characters, and they're both, well, apart from Moiraine, sort of, they're both bit parts. The pacifist I was mentioning earlier, and the evil lady in this one. I like the way that she has an actual motive for being on the side of the bad guys, even though it's a nihilistic motive, but still, it's a motive.
Yeah, that's generally kind of how like the Darkling either gets people. Like it's either through money or power, or the idea that he will eventually break the wheel and cause existence to end and all the pain to end with it.
We're in Nirvana territory, kind of.
A little bit, yeah. I will definitely agree that they rushed Tom by quite a bit. He's only around for 2 episodes and kind of went, and he goes into, like, when we go into episode 4, and we can kind of just talk once after they go to this town, they are almost captured by a female dark friend, like Valerian was talking about earlier. And we see something odd happen, where Rand breaks down a door that apparently 3 strong men couldn't break down. What do you think that's about?
Oh, this is one of the subtle bits. One of my complaints is that these guys supposedly have all these powers, but they don't do an awful lot with them.
So
I think it's definitely setting up his channeling powers or something to that nature.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed kind of out of nowhere, honestly, because even though they'd established that he had powers, they never showed him do anything or use them for anything before this.
Okay. So one thing that they have not set up very well is the idea that channeling kind of can work with need. Like one thing that we see in this episode is Egwene makes a fire using the power after
Maybe
Perrin isn't able to. And then we see in episode 4, pretty insane thing happens at the end.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
We will. We're making a pretty good clip though, which is good.
Yes, we are. Yeah, we're good. We're good.
Yeah, and we're pretty thoroughly exploring like most of the elements of the episodes. And it's just kind of like we have to talk about like 4 episodes at the same time.
And trying to remember which is in which episode is not always easy.
Yeah, it'll be significantly easier next week, since it's only 1 episode this week, which will be convenient.
Yippee.
So with this,
BRB.
Go for it. So after they are in a bit of a chase where Matt and Tom have kind of a bonding moment while Rand is being the Dark Friend is trying to seduce Rand, where they find this Aiel man who's been pin-cushioned and strung up in a gibbet as a sign of what happens to that kind of person. They see something very interesting. Only this person has ginger hair, which apparently is very rare. So what do you think that? So,
I mean, gingers have no souls. Of course they're rare.
Yeah. Well, not in this world. There's apparently a whole nation of gingers and blondes. But specifically, we actually see the only other ginger in this show so far in the right of this picture. So they're kind of
foreshadowing.
Yeah, they are doing some decent foreshadowing. I do kind of think it is kind of. I wonder how exactly they're going. Like, it seems like they're really shotgunning. This person can be the Dragon Reborn. This person can be the Dragon Reborn. Unless they shift it around over the next few episodes, it could be disappointing like, just you didn't set this up well for when they do reveal who is the Dragon Reborn.
Yeah, I feel like this is gonna run into the mystery box problem.
A little bit, yeah.
Either there aren't enough clues, or there aren't enough like misdirections or proper flow to the mystery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or maybe there's too many misdirections.
Yeah. Because so far, I'm trying to think, but we haven't really seen any indication that Rand is the dragon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like pretty much all of the hints are lying towards everybody else. Like when Perrin seems like the only special thing about him is that the wolves don't hurt him. Matt, at the end of this episode...
Well, Matt has the dagger, which is doing weird shit.
Which we'll get to in the next bit. We'll probably do we'll probably hop, skip, and jump over most of episode 4, since not a whole lot, since it's mostly contained.
Well, Matt,
go for it. Sorry.
Matt managed not to die yet, despite being an idiot.
True.
Maybe that's special.
Yeah, Matt has plot armor. Yeah. But after the chase, we get Dana's motivation, and then Tom skewers her through the throat with a knife, and from there,
yeah, he's one hell of a knife thrower.
He is. They do have setups that he has knives up his sleeves. Earlier in the episode, it's a little bit dark though. It's not quite as bad as some of the badly lit scenes in Game of Thrones, but it's kind of like if you're not looking closely for the knife, it's kind of not obvious.
They do
I was not looking for it, and I did not notice it. So
yep, me neither. But they do like blue a lot in this show. It's a nice color of blue.
Yeah,
but they do like their blue.
Yeah, I'm glad that they do. I know that the fight in Emmons Field was like a week of night shoots, which is just good. You're not forcing your actors to do a month and a half of night shoots. Well done.
Yes, you're not as out there as D&D. You're great. You're better than D&D. Yeah.
You're not absolute morons.
Not to put too fine a point on it, but yay!
We have middling competence.
Yes! Ouch, I clapped too loud and hurt myself.
Yeah, and at least it's not like a James Cameron production. If you guys... James Cameron is nuts.
Any relation to Kirk Cameron?
Nah, James Cameron has talent. Kirk Cameron has none. But James Cameron, he did The Abyss, and that was plagued with a lot of production problems, including many of the actors thinking that they were going to die from drowning because.
Oh no! Oh no! Sorry, Space Junk in the chat. Oh boy, I am so on the edge.
Who will the dragon be? Dower Boy Rand, Void Vomiting Matt, Perrin the Furry, Egwene the Egwene. Yeah, Egwene's personality is not very well set up, I would say.
No, or Super Saiyan Nynaeve. Find out next time. Of course, the real answer is it's Fred Flintstone. That's the real answer.
Obviously, either that or Tying Sand.
Yeah, it probably will be Tying Sand. With our luck, yeah, it probably will be.
Kirk Cameron has nuns.
I don't think he has nuns, but he does have psychotic Santa Claus.
Oh, that's the only thing.
Anyway, let's stop talking about Camerons.
Yeah.
It's the
And
only
start
thing
talking about the show.
I'll just admit just this one sense, like he's the only thing in the film that I really much remember.
Other than the hip hop breakdancing rap group.
I mean, yes. But we'll move on like the chap says.
Yeah. But that's pretty much it for Place of Safety. The next episode is The Dragon Reborn. Now, at the end of episode 3, Lan and Moraine and Nynaeve run into a group of Aes Sedai that are escorting a prisoner by the name of Logain Ablar, who has been vaguely set up in the others, like there's Warren Gildon. But him at being the Dragon Reborn has not been well set up before this episode. And they kind of just throw you into it. And admittedly, like the scene with Logain at the beginning where you see him in a battle in this castle fighting a pair of guys who try to throw spears at him, but he then just easily knocks them aside and then uses what looks like what Moraine uses, but it's got black sludge all over it.
Because it's corrupted.
Precisely. I think that this honestly, like, this is pretty much like my favorite scene of the show so far. Like, it's the best scene so far. Like, it actually like has tension even for a character that we don't really know. Like
We
the
don't
King
know
of
at all.
Gildon. Yeah, we don't know the King of Gildon at all, but then he goes in and we're honestly, like, I was kind of scared that he would kill the guy. But then when he healed it, I was just like, oh, so you're a good guy. You're at least like you have control, even though like you have evil smoke people. Whispering in his ear to kill him and that he'll betray him. He doesn't. Which I think is kind of which is really neat. I think that was a good scene, and it was very.
Yeah, I think it works as a neat setup for what being a male channeler is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In this particular situation.
Yeah.
Also, Logain invented Rogaine.
Clearly.
That's why he's got all that hair.
Yeah, which he apparently grew over the course of like a few months.
Clearly.
Yeah. It is the best part so far. We'll get to that. But kind of quickly, like, let's just hop, skip, and jump over the other plot lines before we get to this. Perrin and Egwene are still traveling with the Tinkers. We have the scene where Isla talks to Perrin about how her daughter died, and she has kind of decided to just fully devote herself to the Way of the Leaf, which is an interesting comparison to her grandson Aram, who doesn't seem to care. And he's like, supposedly there's this song that will restore peace and happiness, and he's just like, children and old people believe in the song. I'm neither.
Oh, now I remember that. Is that who that chef was?
Mm-hmm. So it's an interesting dichotomy between them.
Yep, and she's the female character with the best
backstory.
Yeah, with the best story along with the evil one.
Yeah. That's pretty much all that we can really say about that particular scene. There's kind of definitely some poking at Perrin, like when she asks, like, when you have has your life been better or worse since you picked up the axe? And it's just like, which
was maybe a little too blunt, but
a little bit too blunt, but also
across.
Another thing is what is it? Perrin had to pick up that axe or he was going to die.
Yeah.
And like he was doing the right thing up to the point where he accidentally killed his wife.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping that they're gonna do like a plot twist and say that he was mildly influenced by the corruption or the taint or the madness, whatever, in order for that to happen, because man, that was really stupid.
Yeah. There is another possibility that so do you think that they're all going to be able to channel, or do you think that there's going to be slight differences between them? Since it seems like
I think most likely they'll all be able to channel to some degree.
Okay.
But it will be a pretty significant difference between them.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty. I do think though that it is kind of at least for me, like it's kind of annoying that Perrin doesn't have a weapon other than the knife.
Yeah.
Like in the book, like his mentor, like gives him an axe gives him a single bladed axe, and Perrin carries it through pretty much all of the books, and he keeps that axe on him, but now he just has a knife, which leads me to believe like he has to pick up a weapon at some point, because otherwise he's not going to be able to fight anybody. And at least there'll be some measure of like trauma set up, but it's going to be built on like the fridging, which is kind of annoying. I think that the bit with Rand and Matt is kind of the weakest part of this, mostly because of the structural parts of it. Because we have them going on horseback and they go to this farm, and Matt and Tom talk a bit about how Matt's showing weird signs of being able to channel. And Tom knows this because his nephew was able to channel. And after the Red Sisters gentled him, he just lost the will to live and committed suicide. We do have a weird dream where we see Fire Eyes show up. And once that dream happens, where Perrin looks like he's beating a tinker with a hammer based on the clothing. We see Matt walking with blood on his hands, and then we see Egwene looking terrified just before she gets grabbed by the face by Mr. Fire Eyes.
I'm having trouble remembering. I actually don't remember much about Rand after they left the inn.
Yeah, he doesn't.
Rand doesn't do a lot after they leave the inn. Like he talks one guy down from shooting them with arrows,
and then they go into the farmhouse and everybody's dead. And then the Fade attacks them, and Tom holds the Fade off while Matt and Rand run.
Is that the scene that I think Aspiring posted it to the Discord? You don't want to kill us?
Yeah.
and
that's the writers trying to placate the fans.
Why do I feel like the writers are saying this to us? Like, even the words they use.
But that's kind of the end of those two plot lines. Then we kind of go to the meat of, we don't have White Bridge. So I will say, Tom shows up from near the beginning, in the book. Like, he's a part of Winter Night, but I think they decided not to introduce him at that point. But having him only be around for 2 episodes and then apparently like try and sacrifice himself for the 2 boys is kind of a bit underwhelming, since he hasn't had kind of screamed a little bit. Like it feels like their time is exceptionally limited, and I think that this would have benefited from being 10 episodes rather than 8, but also another problem resides in the fact that they're putting in some filler, like what we're about to talk to. Even though this filler is the most engaging part of the show so far, it's still kind of filler that could be devoted to fleshing out the other characters, rather than introducing a bunch of Aes Sedai characters that are going to be more important later on, but we need some measure of setup for the main characters.
Yeah, like I can understand doing more with the white cloaks and the Aes Sedai early on, but it doesn't feel like this doesn't feel like a gradual build-up. It's like you're throwing them in early on because you want to bring them back later.
Yeah. So at this point, we see kind of Aes Sedai culture, and we see Nynaeve, Lan, and Moraine kind of interacting with the Aes Sedai who are taking Logain back. And we kind of see some White Tower politics. We see that men can't see women's weaves and vice versa. We see kind of the demonstration of how like shielding works, some more stuff about how the One Power works. And we see like Warder and Aes Sedai interactions. They're different. We also get more characterization for Leandrin, who's clearly evil.
Remind me who Leandrin is, please. Is she the blonde one?
She's the blonde wearing all red. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. She's one of the red Ajas and wants to kill them all dead. All the men all dead.
Yeah, the fight scene, it kind of does look like a fan film at points.
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
That's kind of the impression I get with a lot of the like environments in the show. They look sort of fan filmy.
You know, when kind of they're fighting in the forest and a bunch of mortar shells are blowing up the area.
Well, I remember fighting anyway.
Yeah. And it either by happenstance or by design, I guess you could say that Logain planned this, and it's kind of been making it so that they're like his countrymen who have been following him come after him, I suppose, while the Aes Sedai are exhausted, and then he breaks loose, and the Warders and the Aes Sedai fight his followers. And at the end, Nynaeve, he kills one of the Aes Sedai, and her warder tries to kill him with a jump, a flying leap at him with a pair of axes, and Logain shatters the axe with kind of, I'd say, the worst CGI effect in the show so far.
Somehow Logain did get captured, though.
Yeah. So apparently, like, it's explained that he was asleep, that they grabbed him in his sleep.
That'll be a lesson to us all.
Yeah. If you want to kill me, I guess that's how you're going to have to do it.
Oh, that's useful to know. Thank you.
But as I always say, when that happens.
Sounds like a gas, baby. Bring it on.
Okay, fair enough this time.
Yeah. But after the axe breaks, the Nynaeve gets pissed and like Space Junk said earlier, goes Super Saiyan and heals pretty much everybody in the room. as pretty much the most I think like one of the more impressive feats, I suppose.
It's like that is pretty sure that's just as good as anything Logain does in the whole episode.
Yeah, or even Moraine in the fight in the Two Rivers, where she dismantles a building and calls down lightning and shoots fireballs.
Nynaeve is the dragon, confirmed.
Oh, if Nynaeve or if that would Nynaeve or Egwene being the Dragon Reborn would be such a massive fundamental change that they would completely break the story.
Yeah.
And then Leandrin takes advantage of the moment. She's been trying to push for Logain to just be gentled, and so she does it.
And I can't really disagree with Space Jump. The best thing they had was Shadar Lagoth. Everything else pales in comparison. That's pretty much my view.
Yeah, they actually built that city. They built large sections of that city for the shoot. It seems like most of their budget went there. Though, based on the trailers, Tarvalin looks like it's got a lot of budget. Though they're kind of speeding towards Tarvalin since they don't get to Tarvalin in Eye of the World.
And we're not there yet.
Yeah, we've just seen trailer shots of the White Tower.
Oh, okay. Oh, and that's where they're headed.
Mm-hmm.
So, where is it that they have all those Aes Sedai all together that are defeat and Logain? That's not the White Tower.
No. That is just a small, like, out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, it didn't look like a White Tower. It looked like a cave or something.
Yeah, it's basically just like they're camped there for a little bit, and that's where they're holding him out of sight.
But there were a whole globe of Aes Sedai there.
Yeah, there were, because they were sent there. There's somewhere in the vicinity of hundreds of Aes Sedai in the White Tower. They just sent a strike force to go find Logain.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
It's not established in the show, but it's just like there's like the White Tower, like Lan asked Steppen how his life in the tower. He's like, it's about the same.
Who? What?
When Lan and Steppen, the guy with the axes, are sparring.
Okay.
And it's also like they're saying they want to get him back to the tower. So there's more Aes Sedai than just 7.
Yeah, you would think so. I don't remember how many there were.
Yeah, there's I think like 10 or so full sisters and a bunch of warders. I do like Priyanka Bose, Alana, the Indian lady, mostly because like I actually find her accent very charming.
Is that the Reverend Mother?
Not the what do you mean, not the Reverend Mother. The girl with the lady with the braids with the bells in her hair.
Oh.
Reverend Mother. What do you mean by Reverend? Oh, you mean
Whoever the older lady was, the one who got killed.
Karine Nagashi. She's just an Aes Sedai.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I do think though that they're just kind of doing many red herrings, really. Like at this point, I think that they really need to, like, the focus hasn't really been like
Determined.
It's kind of been scattershot. Yeah, and it just feels like the how to put it, like we haven't been made clear what the conflict really is. It's kind of a lot of buildup, and it's kind of vague. I think that one thing.
I feel like the Dark One has only been mentioned once so far.
Yeah, I mean they're building up, but to what? I mean, I guess they're building up to one of these people will get revealed as the dragon, and eventually will somehow fight the Dark One in some way or other. But because the Dark One, like you said, he's hardly been mentioned all that much. If you compare it to Lord of the Rings, the conflict is evident at the beginning, and the focus is also evident at the beginning, even if there are side adventures in the first book. It's clear what the conflict and what the focus are.
Mm-hmm. And it is kind of, like it's stated, but I don't think it's stated that the Dark One wants one of these Two Rivers people. The annoying thing is that the purpose is not very well established, other than they're the Dragon Reborn. He wants them, but kind of like it's only like one group that he's like actively pursuing, it seems. And also it doesn't seem like there's an end game in sight. Like there isn't a clear motivation. I think like to kind of compare it like loosely to Game of Thrones, not like in a like thematic or structural way. It's mainly like thematic or plot wise. It's more kind of structural. Dany has a very clear plot and conflict in nearly each episode that she's in, of some kind of obstacle that she's trying to overcome, or some kind of development that she's going through. Same with Ned Stark, up until the point he dies. They haven't really done that for any of the characters really in this show, other than maybe Nynaeve.
Yeah.
Like Ned, he wants to find out what happened to Jon Arryn. Initially, Daenerys just wants to kind of get by and kind of make the best of her situation. Then her conflict becomes with Viserys and the fact that she starts standing up to him, and then it becomes about the taking the Dothraki to conquer Westeros, and then after that gets resolved, it's a clear the Mirri Maz Duur infects Drogo, and that becomes the next hurdle. And then after that, there's the down moment of she seems to have lost everything, and then she walks into the pyre and dragons come out. So very clear, like, tasks and obstacles in front of them.
Yeah, and there's a theme running through the whole thing that she has to come into her own.
Mm-hmm. And with Ned, it's kind of like the binding obstruction is he's up against the Lannisters. And that's kind of his opponent. And
he's not as powerful as he thinks he is.
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, like, he is technically as powerful as he thinks he is. He just doesn't exercise it well.
Yeah.
Like in name, like he could simply, like, he speaks with the king's voice. Like, he could simply, like, he doesn't have to be self-deprecating at all to the small council. He can just kind of go in and say, like, I'm in charge. But he kind of defers to them and he kind of defers to the wrong people because none of them have the interests of the realm at heart.
Yeah, but anyway, the point is that there's that there is a unifying focus in a Game of Thrones that we don't yet have here.
Yeah. And it's kind of, I think the problem is just that the conflict is who is the Dragon Reborn? And that's really vague and kind of hard to get invested in.
Especially when they keep changing the number of dragons.
Yeah, or at least like candidates for the dragon.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, since kind of went from 4 to 5, even though like Nynaeve is the wrong age. Like it's established that Nynaeve is the wrong age. Like she's 5 years older than any of the others.
Yeah.
So I guess like final thoughts. We managed to get a good clip in. We covered 4 episodes in about an hour, about 2.5 hours.
2.5 hours, yeah, a little more than an hour.
Yeah.
By normal time, by most people's time measurement, anyway.
Yeah. But we've covered a good amount of. We talked a little bit more than I was anticipating. I think there's just that there was a lot to cover, but at least like in terms of events. But I guess like the show, it's kind of just mediocre. Like just as a show, it's just kind of okay. There's some clever stuff. There's some good stuff. There's some pretty bad and annoying stuff. To book purists, like if any of you have seen Wisp, Wisp has been pissed at the show. And
So is Shad.
I'm going to have to watch that one. Shad was a little more forgiving of episode 1. I've only not seen his commentary on his review of the others yet.
Oh, he hated episode 3 mainly because of what they did to Tom Maryland. He kind of said he's kind of a aging rock star type with a terrible singing voice, whereas Tom in the books is this grand and theatrical older man that looks kind of like Sam Elliott.
Yeah, aging rock star.
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah. But I can't think of anything else to say other than that the show's kind of it's kind of like I said earlier in the stream, it's kind of lacking a sense of dynamism. There's a lot of kind of, I think with a lot of the fans like giving it positive reactions, I don't think they're dumb. I think that there's an element of them filling in the story or seeing where it could go. And they kind of like being surprised, which is kind of an annoying bit of pop culture today where if it surprises you, it's good.
Yeah.
That's I've heard that sentiment, at least like when like somebody said Kaladin's story in Words of Radiance, his ending, no specifics, but he said she said that like it was obvious and stupid, it was obvious and ridiculous. I was just like, why? Because it wasn't surprising or definitely foreshadow. It's just like why? And I hate that mentality. It's so asinine. But it's a whole lot
It's
of
like the idea that it was surprising. It's kind of like subverting expectations. It's basically become synonymous with and an excuse for lazy writing.
Yeah.
It's like,
And
this surprised me. I never saw that coming, and yet neither did anyone else. Well, the reason nobody saw it coming was because it wasn't set up, which makes it bad.
I wasn't expecting Fred Flintstone to kill the Dark One.
Or Moraine to shoot out of a window after drinking the blood of a baby giraffe, shooting fire out of her anus.
Yeah,
That was very elaborate.
I wasn't expecting that. Yeah, I think it's a reference to something.
It's a joke about Alan Moore.
Yeah, like I said, a reference.
Alan Moore is a renowned comic book artist who's an insane pagan anarchist who looks kind of like a more disheveled and crazed Rasputin type.
He kind of looks like Rasputin, yeah.
Yeah. And it's kind of just this like crazy, he's this just insane dude. But
Crazy
show,
British wizard.
Yeah. But with this show, like,
and again, he considers like art to be magic. So,
that makes
What
sense.
what I wished for was that one of the boys would be a literal dragon, but everyone else seems to just ignore it. Everyone asks who the dragon is, including the dragon.
Yeah. Imagine this as a joke while one of them is an actual dragon. I do have some books where dragons are able to turn into people and back for practical purposes. But yeah, like you were saying earlier, like if this wasn't Wheel of Time, I don't know if I would really be that invested in this. Like, I'm morbidly curious more than anything else. It's just like, okay, this is kind of a rocky start. Where are they going from here? Is this going to be like an okay season 1 and a bad season 2 like we had with the boys? Or is it going to remain like this level of quality throughout the entirety of its run? My hope is that they get better. I hope that they don't, like, because the boys was an abrupt downturn from like a 6 or 7. Season 1 was like a 5 or 6 to an abrupt 2. Like a drastic drop in quality. My hope is that that doesn't happen here, since I know one thing about. No, it doesn't. I defy that statement.
What do you know it doesn't?
Dragons turning into people diminishing their coolness.
Well, if their human form is not cool, then yeah.
Humans suck.
Let me think. Let me see. Where is that Shad clip? I need the Shad clip. Where is it?
No, that is not correct.
Yes, that is correct. See?
Perhaps. I do know I need to get like more of this kind of clip.
It would be extremely painful for you.
There's a specific quote actually from Yu-Gi-Oh! GX that is, "Oh, don't worry, it won't hurt me." I need to get that one.
Yeah, that would be good. I wish Smog would one. I agree.
Yeah, Smog is cool.
I just was inconsolable at his death.
Yeah. Though admittedly, like the Benedict Cumberbatch behind the scenes doing the mocap is one of the most amusing things I've ever seen.
He is clearly having the time of his life doing this.
That was weird as the blazes. Good God.
Yeah, it's extremely weird. But I don't really have any more thoughts on this show. I think there's like some character problems, some setup and payoff problems. It's kind of all over the place in terms of its execution.
Who's the most successful of the main characters? Like the dozen or so main characters. Who's the most successful?
I would say that Moraine and Matt are the most clearly defined characters out of the whole lot.
Yeah.
With Lance a close second.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, at least with Matt, we had the whole characterization beat with him caring about his sisters.
Oh,
we didn't really get this for Rand, for example.
Yeah, maybe Rand's the most successful.
It's a Perrin to a certain extent.
Perrin doesn't do much. I mean, he should be broken up with grief over his wife. I mean, he has a little bit of nice interaction with Egwene, I guess. So there's that. The Tinkers are cool, but
they're only there briefly.
Yeah. Most of the characters that make most of an impression are commonly minor characters.
Yeah. Which is not a very good thing, unfortunately.
No.
I am interested to see how they continue. Since I was thinking that they were going to do Eye of the World and Great Hunt based on the fact that the showrunner said there's going to be Great Hunt and Eye of the World, which are the first two books and bits of Dragon Reborn. But it seems like most of it's kind of pulling in characters and
as opposed to plots,
as opposed to the plot,
which is fair enough, really.
Yeah, it's going to be less. It's going to be less hurried than I thought it would be, because I was thinking that they were going to do what Last Kingdom did. Granted, Last Kingdom has a little bit more leeway since the books have a lot of time jumps, as far as I understand, and it's more of a Saxon type story rather than that has a bunch of jumps, where then you can kind of condense two books into one TV show of 8 or 10 episodes. But I kind of feel like Wheel of Time is kind of a little bit rushed to a certain extent, while still adding in some filler elements.
They maybe need a longer season.
I think so, and I think that having an hour and a half long pilot would have helped them a lot, rather than a 1 hour pilot.
Yeah, because that's kind of become a normal thing for TV shows now, to do an extra long pilot.
Yeah, and I think that was an Amazon mandate for that. It had to be a short pilot, but it's just kind of I'm kind of more I would be kind of more engaged if this was kind of trash like The Boys season 2, or at least good trash like Legend of the Seeker, or even bad trash like Game of Thrones later seasons.
I'm not sure what call a Legend of the Seeker trash exactly.
Well, I call Legend of the Seeker my trash because I love it, but I acknowledge that it's kind of bad at a point. It's really schlocky. It's
schlock, maybe. I guess schlock rather than trash, because trash is season 8.
Yeah. I was thinking fecal matter, but that works too.
Not to point a point in it.
Yeah. But I kind of just find this there's not really much for even just as the only thing that's really engaging me is just the adaptation purist in me that's getting really irritated. But I'm trying to separate the adaptation purist to a certain extent. And if I don't take if I take the adaptation purist out of the equation, most of what I'm seeing at this point in time is it's kind of meh. But there's some good elements, and episode 4 is my favorite so far. But I'm kind of concerned as to where they're going to go, because they made so many changes at this point that it's just going to be hard for them to keep accurate. And once they get into diverging stuff, it's going to be harder for them to keep some measure of quality control, because they won't have much of a template. And it seems as though they're or maybe it's the fact that like it seems like when they go with original content, it seems like they put more effort into it because it's their baby as opposed to Robert Jordan's baby. Since the first 2 episodes they've cut a lot, but they've stayed pretty close. Episode 3 and 4 made a lot of changes and are mostly original content, but it seems as though the content makes a slight improvement.
So the stuff they add is actually better than the stuff they keep?
At least in how they're adapting it. It seems like it's more engaging, I suppose. I'm not sure how to put it, but it seems as though like with the Nynaeve plot in episode 4 specifically, that's been the most engaging part of the show so far, and that's all original content. Whereas, and it seems as though they're kind of fleshing that out, whereas they're kind of hurrying through a lot of the book material.
Which would you rather watch? The Wheel of Time show or an entire season based on Max Magician?
You know what? If I could torture you guys with it, I would say Max Magician. That movie is remarkable. Yeah, maybe it's just it is definitely the books are better, but it's like weirdly enough, it seems that they put more effort into the original content more than the stuff that they kind of are keeping from the books.
Which is a strange approach, especially when you're dealing with something. Well, not only is it not original IP, it's not original IP, and it also has a pretty significant fan base and a very dedicated fan base too.
Well, the weird thing is, there's a lot of kind of the fan circles, I think Daniel Green are kind of they're singing its praises and saying it's an 8 out of 10, and the pilot's the weakest at 6 or 7 out of 10. I'm just I can't get behind your enthusiasm. I'm very sorry.
Yeah, it seemed like, well, I didn't see a lot of the reviews, but there seemed to be a lot of, hey, this is great. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. I think that kind of is a little bit more disappointing to me. I kind of would be if it's mediocre, it's kind of less engaging than if it were trash. And I kind of if it were trash, it would kind of at least be I'd get a rage reaction beyond my purist reaction. But it's kind of just,
or you just laugh at it, I guess.
Yeah. Or just laugh. Well, kind of I don't know if I can laugh at this because if it were trash, because I love this book series, and the worse the adaptation is, the more that it's not going to get Black Cauldron, the Chronicles of Bardane is a dead franchise, will never be made into a series unless Disney grows some balls and decides to make it into a TV show, which will be bad. The Willow show is going to be bad. Fight me.
Yeah, Game of Thrones, you can have fun hating the last season, and you can have fun being sarcastic at D&D's expense. Can we really have fun being sarcastic at whoever it is expense?
Rafe Judkins. Yeah, I think that Rafe Judkins is kind of just kind of a milquetoast showrunner in a way. He's not terrible. He's there's some competence here. There's some good stuff here. It's just kind of swimming in a sea of mediocrity in a lot of ways.
He's no Sam Raimi, that's for sure.
No. Yeah, Sam Raimi, I think partially it's just the actors are able to have more fun, and the actors are able to get a lot more range. like you get like even in like the first 2 episodes of Legend of the Seeker, you see Bridget Regan, Zed, and Richard go through like a gamut of emotions, and you see like various different perspectives on their characters. Whereas with this show, you don't really get much of that, and it's kind of disappointing because these are multifaceted characters, and it's just kind of sad that it's a little bit mediocre. Like it's not terrible, but it's kind of just it's definitely a bad adaptation. But it's in terms of like it's not faithful. I'm not going to use the argument from adaptation saying that just because it's unfaithful, it's bad. John Carter is extremely unfaithful to its source material, but it's better than its source material. So I will say that much. Any other final thoughts before we close out?
No, I don't think so.
Alrighty. Well, thank you, Count Balerion and Von Lustra. This has been. I definitely like the fact that we weren't like they were very analytical and we were able to keep pretty focused throughout on the action at hand. It's going to be. We're going to probably go into a little bit more depth when it comes to the end of the season, and as each episode sequentially comes out. And I imagine though, the book reader show is going to be very ranty. Oh, go for it.
Sorry, did you get Space Chunk Rand as Max Magician Reborn? Did you get that bit?
Yeah, I saw that. The power of the dragon is just a trickle compared to the blinding light that is Max Magician.
Well, Max Magician was the best thing in his film. I'll give him that.
That's not saying much.
Well, him, and then the other thing was that chap with the horns.
Bah, bah, worm. Bah.
I heard that.
Idiot! I heard that. He's just the worst bad guy ever. He's even worse than the Night King. Like he's worse than Kylo Ren or the Night King. He's pretty much the worst villain in existence. But I have a new ending clip, and we will use that as our closer. We will see you guys on the book reader stream. I'll have to find out when the other guys are available, but we will definitely do that. We will definitely be doing that soon. Hopefully we will be able to do it possibly Thursday. I'm not sure. We'll give it a try for recording at some point. Maybe Tuesday evening. I'm not sure. We'll see. But anyway, see you guys later.
Cut, check the gate, moving on.